Here's my pitch, Dan. Before we say don't do cheat day on Sundays because you're overly fed or whatever and sluggish, why don't we try different, like all Indian food or like
all Indian food? You're gonna do. Well, I was gonna say maybe I could double my Adderall dosage on Sundays.
Rob Schraub's gonna double his Jif dosage on you.
Well.
What do you think?
What's left in the tank?
You got to try that, DeMarge.
Oh, jeez.
Oh God! Don't look at it. Just try it.
Oh, do you want to try some?
Spencer, did you try?
No.
Spencer's not a real alcohol guy.
No, it makes me sick. I get my joints start to ache.
DeMarge, butt chug it. Butt chug it.
Careful, it'll spill on your. Oh wow. All right.
The suspense is killing us.
It's the coldest thing in the room. It's delicious. That's great. That's fantastic.
You're not a video game guy, are you?
If it's like sports video games, and fighters and stuff.
Sports.
People are disappointed.
I just kept my damn mouth.
If my mind was sharper, I could come up with a great analogy for like sports video games is like, and in the punchline, I have to throw it to a room though.
Well, what were you going to say? Let's say I was a video game guy. What were you?
Oh, I don't know. I was going to ask if you've been playing Witcher 3.
Oh yes, absolutely. I have been. I just got through the thorns, the thorn level. No, I haven't.
They're tricky.
Yeah.
Are there any female gamers here that don't play sports video games? Are you playing Witcher 3?
Are there any here who do?
No. Any women playing Witcher 3 in the audience? Any young ladies?
What game are you playing?
Beyond Two Souls. Oh, I played that. That's kind of fun. That's the one with Juno and
Ellen Page. Ellen Page is in a game.
Yeah. Juno. Yeah. Did you play? Well, do you want to come up and so can I talk to you about video games for a second, and then you can play Shadowrun with us?
Right up here.
Yeah, it's hot. Like it'll make you feel. In a second, you'll be sweating, and you'll be like, "What kind of horrible monster am I?" You're not. You're just a French fry. It's not you. It's the lights and it's the heat.
What's your name?
Emily.
Hello, Emily.
Hello.
Welcome to Harmontown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so did you play Heavy Rain?
Oh,
or Hard
God.
Rain or Heavy Rain?
Heavy Rain.
Heavy Rain.
Yes, with the origami killer.
But that compared to those are the same people that
I agree. No,
Yeah.
Heavy Rain was much better.
Like they figured out how to. They made leaps and bounds with that video game style.
Yes, and I think that's why Quantic Dream is so good, is because it's like an interactive movie, and but Beyond Two Souls is like I was not expecting it to be so scary.
Yeah.
Like holy shit. It's basically, if nobody knows what this game is about, it's basically Ellen Page is recreated as Jodie, and she is this character who has this entity that is attached to her. And basically, it's the whole time, like, all these people are trying to control her and make her do all these things that she doesn't want to do, and blah, blah, blah. Anyways, it ends up being like...
No, come on.
This is
I thought you were going to spoil it.
This French company made this, right? Is this the game?
French company?
I hung out with her for a while, and she was in town, and she was making a game. She was in France, though, I think.
Yeah,
so,
it's
like,
weird.
Willem Dafoe's in it?
Yeah,
that's what she was making for all that time. Okay.
And it's weird how Willem Dafoe looks as a CG person.
Yeah, he I thought he looked like a cartoon in person, and then it was like, wow, he actually looks better as a cartoon.
Yeah, it's a weird effect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah. Video games are getting more immersive, Jeff. Can you guys handle that with your soccer?
Yeah, you got to be careful, DeMarge. If we start, if you and I share our love of anything right now, Dan's in a very
an hour and a half podcast
vulnerable.
before this.
Dan, you're in a very vulnerable, jealous, kind of emotionally precarious place right now.
Because I've been for the last 30 minutes. I've been holding in farts, and now, as of my last sip of pina colada, now I'm also holding down vomit.
No, it's so funny because I actually.
So I'm like a Chinese finger trap. No.
Look at me.
I'm the opposite of a Chinese. I'm like a water balloon with that's untied on two ends. No. I'm like a toothpaste tube in a vice grip with a cap on each end.
You're like a pipe bomb without the bits on the end to hold the stuff in. It's just all going to go out both sides.
I'm like. Maybe we should get Ryan Stiles in here. He could probably
donut.
I'm sure he could come up with.
He would. He'd come up with 20.
Yeah.
You know why? Because he's a gifted. He wouldn't let the show fucking sink like it's fucking going down. Because he's a hard worker and he gets up here and if he has to skin a knee or chip a tooth to make these people laugh, he fucking does it.
We should bring cherries out.
No, the Smothermans aren't here. To us, they're just regular fruits. To the Smothermans, they're treasure trove.
I hate cherries.
You hate cherries?
What? I do not like cherries. I don't like the fear.
The cherry
when I have
right
a cherry,
now.
I'm like, fuck, I'm gonna break a tooth this time because you bite it and then the seed is so hard. Yeah. And it's
I hate pits. I hate it. I love olives, like marinated olives. And then sometimes you get them and then you're like, this better not have a pit in it.
I swear to God.
And then it has a pit in it. And you're like, what am I supposed to do with this fucking rock in my mouth? And then you spit it into a napkin like an animal and like put it. Like, what are you supposed to do? Why do they have those things?
What I do is I swallow cherry pits.
What?
And then I swallow them all. And then when I poop them, there's people in New York that make very expensive coffee out of them. You can't even afford it. It's so expensive. It's called Jeff Davis Cherry Poop Coffee.
I swallow. Have you heard, I don't know if this is an urban legend or not, but they say I think this is an urban legend because it started from like urban living in like the 50s, and then it became like a big thing in the 70s. The idea that kids were eating cherry pits and they were pooping, and that in the sewers there's a whole population of like little George Washingtons.
Not cherry trees.
Well, there are cherry trees,
okay.
Obviously, little cherry trees. But then there's these little tiny George Washingtons. Yeah, chopping down the
Are they also telling lies?
Well, that's the ironic thing is that I think the whole story is a lie, but like in the story, no, none of them are lying about chopping down the trees.
Why in this day and age where our political culture is so bereft of intellect and leadership, aren't we cultivating this sewer full of George Washingtons?
Well, because he wasn't really a leader, you know. He was a warrior, and he's the leader our nation needed at that time in history. But the truth is, if you brought George Washington out now, first of all, he'd be tiny and covered in poop, and
his teeth are wood.
Toothless.
Weird.
Second of all, he's just, by all accounts, he was sort of a dum-dum and just sort of inspiring because he was courageous and a good general.
Could he do any worse?
Could he do any worse?
Could we do any worse? Are you asking?
Like stick George.
Oh no, he couldn't. Yeah.
He might be like legit, like better than.
Oh yeah, I'm sure of anybody from, if you went back in time and pulled anybody from back yonder with I'm sure there would be a couple scandalous remarks that would be like, no, that's now called anti-Semitism. Like they would be like, oh no, I'm sorry, I'm from 1921. But as far as their attitude about the role of government, I bet we'd be like, holy shit, this guy's like amazing.
Well, way back then, the office of the presidency was not a really prestigious job.
Yeah. So they'd be like they'd have that Ross Perot, Bernie Sanders,
who would listen to him?
Charm. No, they'd be the third party candidate that wasn't allowed in the debates because they'd be like, I don't understand why we're talking about this, and we'd be like, boo.
Did you just fart right now?
No, that was my mouth.
Are you asking? Was he covering a fart? Was that subterfuge?
I sometimes do that. Like I'll make a laugh really loud, and then I'll fart at the same time, and it's like, I didn't know.
Truth be told, Emily's been farting ever since she sat down up here. You guys. It's a maelstrom.
Well, we don't have much time. I wanted to actually might have been fruitful to ask Emily as an ambassador and a female gamer, like what if a game's really cool, but there's like, as with Witcher 3, where it's just like, wow, this is really cool, but it's like this fantasy game, and it's just like all of these sorceresses with the cleavage and the kind of like very like mythic gender roles. Like, does that throw the modern? I guess the answer is you don't speak for all women. Like, some women are probably totally thrown by that.
See, I feel like, yes, some women are thrown by that, and that's fine and whatever. But I'm just like, I love tits. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I feel like
it's a very bold stance.
It should be a thing that women, we're given boobs. We should be happy, and you know what I mean. Like, that's something we should use to our, it makes cosplaying fun and like all that kind of thing. I think that if we're gonna get all offended about it, I don't know. That's just me. I've always wanted to love my boobs, and I think every woman should.
Well, I think the counterpoint to that would be,
if a woman's gonna be offended by it, then that's okay. You can be entitled to your own opinion. But me, I'm like, girl, rock the titties, love
right.
them.
Well, I don't think the offense is coming from the exposure of them, as if it's like people who are like puritanical. I think there's a fine line, but it's like people that are like, well, there's an objectification happening when they're on display.
Yeah.
So if it reduces the person's role to a dehumanized role, so that they're simply a tray of dessert, and if they're not also saying E equals MC squared, I don't know. I'm mansplaining.
Yeah,
and white knighting and Chewbacca.
No, that's actually very. It's endearing.
Wimbledon. I just felt compelled because it's like it's kind of a straw dog argument that it's everybody likes boobs. I mean, I don't think any women are like, get these things off me. They're terrible, and no one. They're terrible, evil things, and we should never see them. I think any person who's coming down on the other side is more. It's coming more of the angle of like what the thoughts that we're putting in people's head about the role of.
No. I totally get where you're coming from, and I do think that there is something that is endearing about making a woman be sexy without showing the tits. Of course, like her ability to be a badass. Like, what's an example of someone? Whenever I think of games, there's just like so many girls with big boobs.
Harriet Tubman.
Like everywhere.
She just farted again.
Nobody's disagreeing up here.
No.
I mean, I think that, but it's not my job to agree or disagree.
Well,
I just sit there and fart and play the game.
The girl, she doesn't have that big of boobs, and I think she's hot.
No, that's the thing that I always find myself wondering as a guy when I always wonder on behalf of men. I always wonder, why do we even have to, like, because I always say, like, well, I used to say before things got so, I'm like, I used to joke to women, everything that you need to know about men you can learn from a men's prison, I mean, how is that a controversial statement at all? Like when you lock men in a building together and take away all of their wealth and all of their hegemony over society, it turns out that we don't have a lot of like super nuanced needs in order to get an erection or become violent, or like we are drones and we turn on each other and ourselves as quickly as we turn on anyone we're allowed to on the outside. So you take away the necktie and you take away the bank and you take away the skyscraper and you take away the history and the momentum, and you see how little men really need to objectify. You could give a female voice to a banana, and the men would be like, I want to fuck that banana. Because they'll say it eventually about their cellmate. Like they because we're just like biologically we're just kind of drones. Like we're not so I always wonder in my own head, I'm like, well, if the cleavage weren't there, like if that's really the issue, like, but it isn't, it's like if Mary Curie was like a character in a video game, it's even more so the whole Rule 34 thing would start applying. I don't know if I'm making sense, but I was like, when there's like a strumpet on parade and it's like she's all dolled up and she's like the cleavage is booming and the thing and it's just like she just looks like she's designed for these thoughts to be thought about her. I'm always amused by the idea that it's like.
But is that the argument that overwhelmingly that's almost all of what you see in character or female gaming characters?
Yeah, I guess my thought about it is it's like
they're starting to go away from it though. They're starting to make it where like girls aren't, like the Hunger Games and things like that. Like girls becoming badasses and yeah, they're hot, but like, it's more like no, she's smart and she acts like she's the one saving the dude because the dude's a dumbass. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like it's not all about and she's got a huge rack.
Right.
And she's like the whole time.
Right, and I think because those thoughts are like a lot. Like I draw an analogy between clothing and gender roles and language and race issues.
Yeah.
Like the language is certainly a reflection. Like if all the video games are of women like looking like they're ready to go and they're not saying anything of value on top of that, like they have no agency and all that stuff. That's the clothing is a reflection, but I just as you can make genuine racist people use the most polite language in the world, and they might be even more racist than ever, you could totally like count on men to like be like the clothing is not. It's the snot of the cold. Like you can wipe it all you want. Like the virus is more dealt with when you're talking about characters that have agency and the Bechdel test and stuff like that. Like that stuff that actually gets to the heart of the matter. Like is the character, are people watching characters that happen to share physical characteristics with themselves? Are they getting trained to think that they hold a certain role in a dynamic? Like and the clothing is like so secondary to all of that. And whatever. There's no point to it. I'm not proposing that anything change. I'm just kind of amused by the idea that